and welcome to Retech, and today we're going to cover a few bits and pieces that I've been seeing on the internet recently, not just YouTube but other places, and it's concerning the Sinclair ZX81. I've seen it referred to as a scam, not a very good computer, a toy, junk and so on, which is very, very unfair. The ZX81 was not, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion, a scam or a toy. And that's what this video is basically going to cover today, because the ZX81 was a machine alongside its predecessor, the ZX80, which was designed for mass adoption. And the price point was also designed to enable mass adoption, because the ZX80 was originally below £100 just. And the ZX81, when it came out, was priced at about £70 complete, which was quite a drop when you compare it to the cost of the original ZX80. Now, the ZX81 and the ZX80 opened up a world of creators. It opened up a world of possibilities for small businesses and small startups, and it also opened up a world of possibilities for bedroom coders trying to put their wares out there for people to buy. The whole machine was designed around you learning what a computer was about and learning about how to program, which is now referred to as coding today, and how to move on with your computer. For example, you start off with a basic ZX81 and then you would gradually upgrade the machine as necessary, as needed. And then one day when you've outgrown all of your upgrades and the ZX81, then you would actually then upgrade the machine itself, which is the kind of view that Sir Clive Sinclair had of this machine and the ZX80. So originally it was a way in to the whole idea of home computing, because prior to that you had the trinity of computers which started off in the USA, which was the PET, the TRS-80, which is the Model 1 now, and also the Apple II, which are three machines which came out at exactly or roughly exactly the same time. So the 77 trinity. In the UK there wasn't so much that. There wasn't the notion of using a computer or having a computer, because they were kind of seen as science fiction, until people like Sir Clive Sinclair, Sinclair Research, Sinclair Radionics, which was at the time designing what became the new brain, came up with and tried to launch it to the public. Now, today I'm going to go over why the Sinclair ZX81 was not a scam, and it was taken from my computer history videos, which I did a long time now, about 5-6 years ago, which started off with the machines like the ZX80, ZX81, and went through the timeline to the 16 and 32-bit era. So I hope you enjoy this, because if you haven't seen it, this explains really, really well why these machines were not in any way a scam, and why they were responsible for kickstarting the current generation of coding, all the way from the 80s. And the people who were programming back then are still writing software today, and that's all because of a machine that their parents could afford. So let's take a look. So you see, the ZX80 used off-the-shelf components for the most part, and it was only really the ROM that was a work of Sinclair as far as, you know, the physical hardware was concerned, where the ZX81 used a ULA, which was a process that in the 1980s was a chip which was basically full of gates. So these chips with gates in it were programmed to represent or replicate the use of other ICs. And for example, on the ZX80 there were a lot of components which could have been replaced by the ULA, and indeed they were replaced by the ULA, leaving mainly the processor, the now 8K ROM, which has improved BASIC in the machine, and Also the memory stayed for the UK machine at 1K. This allowed the machine to be sold as a fully assembled kit in the UK for £69.95 or a £49.95 kit, and that was unheard of. Again, it was cheaper than the ZX80. It was cheaper than the ZX80 by quite a considerable margin. To allow this, the ZX81 really was again cost reduced even further. So if we have a look at this Sinclair ZX81, you have a molded black case instead of the ZX80 original blown case, and you've also got the similar keyboard, the membrane flat keyboard. You have an ear and a microphone socket, and you also have a RF interface and a power connector, and on the back all you really have is a edge connector, which is literally the tracks directly out on what we would now call the motherboard or on the board itself, with a cutout in the case to allow you to plug in external devices. The ZX81, like the ZX80, was limited. It was limited in its memory size, and it was limited in its expansion options. Some people even produced sound add-ons for these machines, along with various other devices, and it was kind of a cottage industry for a lot of new startups. And one of those startups was Quicksilver, and Quicksilver produced memory add-ons for these machines at one point, but also they produced software. If you have a look at one of my previous videos about Quicksilver software, you'll be able to find out a lot more about how this company evolved around Sinclair machines. Now, the ZX81 also made Sinclair a fortune. It basically made him a lot of money, and it made his company a lot of money, but it also founded a lot of other hardware and software businesses, and a lot of these people are still around today who literally cut their teeth on a Sinclair ZX81. One vast improvement over the ZX80 was the fact that the designers, mainly Jim Westward of Sinclair Research, had kind of adopted an improved approach to the display. They incorporated a slow mode.
What about that bloody screen flicker? Hopefully not.
And this allowed the ZX81 to not blank the screen every time it was either processing or a key press was being used. Now, the ZX81 in its standard form was very limited. It only had 1 kilobyte. 1K is very small when you come to think about how much memory the screen takes up. A full screen is 793 bytes. The system takes up about 125 bytes. And there are also input buffer stacks which need a little bit of memory on top of all that. But there was a program called 1K Chess by David Horn, which includes most of the rules of chess in 672 bytes. So this gives you an idea of your Sinclair ZX81 and what you may have had or purchased when you used the machine back in the early 1980s. Obviously, software was a big concern, and software houses such as Quicksilver sprung up to support the new users of this emerging technology. You also had memory expanders, manuals, which you didn't really need anything else other than the Sinclair manuals because they were incredibly good manuals. Their basic manual on its own was incredibly detailed, incredibly well put together, and it covered things such as the basics all the way through to things you would probably not need until you got to grips with the language itself and to grips with the machine itself. It was that good. Plus also you had dedicated Sinclair add-ons such as their Sinclair 16K RAM pack, and there were a lot more peripherals that you could buy for this machine. But let's have a look at the basic machine. So you can see the machine setup behind, but this is a machine that I've kind of had since I was 10 years old. So this is it. It's a well-used, well-thumbed Sinclair ZX81, and as you can see, it's very 1980s style. You have kind of the graphics of the day. Everything was line drawing, boxed up, box drawings, bright colors, standout graphics, and that's basically the only way you can describe this. And if you look closely at the box, you will see it says personal computer. Now, Clive Sinclair had always pitched his models as a personal computer. This machine, or the original ZX81s, were registered out of 6 King's Parade in Cambridge. So if you have a look there, you've got 6 King's Parade, Cambridge CB2 1SN, and that was at the start of the Sinclair research era for Clive Sinclair. So this one started off not in his later offices in Willis Street in Cambridge, which then became his head office. Now, if we turn the box around, you'll see again it's very 1980s in style, and it's also just giving you an idea of what you should do with this machine. Basically everything in red is what you have in the box: the computer, the power supply, the cables and the manuals. Everything else you add in yourself, such as the TV and the cassette recorder, and it actually doesn't hide anything. It says this is what you will need if you want to expand this machine. Well, most people had a TV at home, and if you didn't have a cassette recorder, then W.H. Smith, where you probably bought this from in the first place, would have been happy enough to have supplied one of their rebranded cheap data or computer cassette recorders that they had in abundance. And this is what you would get in the box once you remove the outer packaging. So on removing the cardboard outer, you will be left with their polystyrene sleeve, and then removing the sleeve, which mine's seen a little bit better days, you ended up with a package which included your ZX81, your power supply, your RF and cassette lead, and underneath the ZX81 you would find space for the manuals, which you've seen standing at the back, and you've also got your ZX81 software catalogue that they always put in. And everything was very dark and dystopian on all of the graphics. It was very early 1980s. And again, 6 King's Parade in Cambridge. So again, very early on in the Sinclair research era. Now the manuals that would sit in the box were this one, ZX81 Basic, and that's your basic programming manual for these machines. Now it's ring bound and it fits snugly in the bottom of the box, and the later manual came as a spine bound manual. It's the same manual, but the early one in my case was ring bound, and this is it. So this is your contents of your brand new machine. And again, this is my original ZX81. Which had travelled everywhere I went at the time, because I used it for everything. I used it for learning how to program and to play the odd games such as Scramble from Quicksilver, or Defender, or various versions of Pac-Man, and a lot of homebrewed software that you get in magazine listings. So, was the ZX81 that bad of a machine when you compared it to its contemporaries? Well, you've got to remember that the price point of the ZX81 made it affordable. It made it affordable by many, and it was massively cheaper in comparison to most, well, to be honest, every machine, not most, but every machine that was out there at the time. And if you got a ZX81 for under £100, so you're looking at roughly £70 for a ZX81, then you added in a Sinclair RAM pack or any other 16K RAM pack for about £40. And then if you added in a decent keyboard, such as a DK-Tronics or a Fuller keyboard, you're kind of looking at about £150 for a machine then that would be a very usable, with nice keyboard, a decent amount of memory for the time, and a machine that you could put on your desk, plug it into a TV and use it for most things that you wanted to. It's kind of take it or leave it, really. If you wanted a machine that you could expand, if you wanted a machine that you could start off at a low price, if you wanted a machine that you could learn with, if you wanted a machine that you could use to grow with you, then the ZX81 made sense. And that was its key, and its key was the price.
Is the personal computer not a desirable notion? Something every citizen would quietly crave if he actually knew what it was.
Price is the key.
Okay, great. I hope you enjoyed this video on the ZX81, and I hope you agree with me. It wasn't a scam. It wasn't a machine that should be kind of laughed at or derided, and it was a fully fledged computer, especially for its price point. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.